Hello everyone and welcome back to the New York Empoleon's Week 2 Team Builder of the CGT. We are here this week taking on the commissioner, founder, and owner, Aquarius, coach of the Chicago Strengths app. If you have not seen them before, go check their link out in the description below. She is a fantastic content creator and just someone I've never faced in the community but has been around forever. So if you want to check her out, and I don't know how you haven't already seen their content, go do that. Links in the description below. Again, as are all the coaches in the league for the entire season. This is only a 9-week season, regular season, and there are 14 coaches. That just mathematically means there are some we won't face. So go check them all out. They're all good people, even if I don't face them this season. Now, we are coming off of a weird team, like very trick room team. I guess not that weird for my team, build in the last one. And we're going to be rocking out with a totally new look for this team. So it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys are excited for it. But we're facing Weavile, Keldeo, Miltank, Magmar, Landorus T, Rotom Fan, Necrozma, Skarmory, Bellossom, Marini, Dragalge, and Aromatisse. So, again, those are sorted by speed, not by draft pick. I don't know. I always say that. I don't know if anyone even notices that they're in a weird order, but just a heads up. They're sorted by speed, not by draft pick. So generally, why I do that, if you look at them on and I say this mon outspeeds X, for instance, the Zatu is built to outspeed Landorus T. It will outspeed everything under Landorus T, barring Scarves or speed boosting moves or anything like that. So that's sort of how it's supposed to be read and like why I do it in that order. So you can kind of get a sense of what mons I'm outspeeding and where that's happening. Anyway, all that aside, we're starting off with a Zatu this week that is going to hopefully outspeed a non-Scarf Landorus T. And this set took me probably the longest of any single set to build and figure out what 4 moves I wanted. I am Boots, although Light Clay, there was definitely a justification for it. I'm not Defog on this set. In fact, it is not. This is my only removal is using Bounce effectively, so we'll see how that goes. I do have Heat Wave for things so that I can come in on like the Skarmory, or the Weavile doesn't just get in for free. But things that switch into this Zatu. Necrozma comes in on the Zatu. Lando T sometimes comes in on the Zatu. Miltank could potentially come in on the Zatu. So what do I have to check all of those? Toxic. If Skarmory does want to come in, Heat Wave 2 it KOs. Additionally, Light Screen shuts down the Necrozma almost entirely. It can't kill me with even a Meteor Beam after a Light Screen. Like Power or Meteor Beam set does not kill after a Light Screen is set up. So we are going to be able to click that and then keep this Zatu around for later, which is just a nuisance for my opponent to deal with. That's the hope at least. Zatu may not get a ton of kills, but I have a feeling it'll be useful early in the game. Just getting a bunch of pivoting in and out, being annoying, setting up that magic bounce opportunities for me if my opponent does want to try to like whirlwind with Skarmory, or try to set up rocks with Lando, or hazard with Skarmory or something like that, or throwing toxics around, or T-spikes with Dragalge. This thing can come in, take the hits it needs to take. Light Screen helps it take those special hits just a little bit better. Next up is Zygarde, the hero of last week. This is going to be a little bit of a different set. It is banded this week, although I really went back and forth on whether I wanted banned or not. Banned is the most intuitive set this week, since if you look at the roster, it's just Bellossom that resists 1,000 arrows, and banded E-speed really helps against things like the Weavile, but I really don't know if banned was better than going with like a Lumberry Dragon Dance set, since the Bellossom has to come in. I set up a Dragon Dance on the Bellossom switching in. Then I go for a Skitter Smack. 2 at KOs guaranteed. Lowers the special attack, so Moonblast is not a problem. If they go for a Sleep Powder, that's fine. I have Lumberry. You know, like I really thought about that set, but I ended up going for Banned and keeping Outrage, because Outrage actually does more damage to the Bellossom than Skitter Smack does, but the Skitter Smack lowering special attack was just generally helpful. Outrage is a risk, obviously, because Weavile does come in and revenge if I am still locked into Outrage, so I have to know that either I'm going to get to it, like the other mon's going to take 2 hits or whatever to kill or whatever, but most of the time I'm clicking 1,000 arrows with this. I do have switch ins to the Bellossom, so I'm not too stressed about it, but this thing is going to be able to hopefully just spam 1,000 arrows and E-speed. That was sort of the plan, and the other 2 moves were just kind of superfluous extra moves that were just generally good for coverage, and that's why I decided I didn't really want to try setting up and sweeping, because at any time the Weavile can always just come in and threaten it out, especially if I haven't gotten any damage on the Weavile, so why bother setting up and not just getting out immediate damage? And that was sort of the justification on that side for why I ended up going with a ban. Now this thing isn't max speed Jolly, it's not outspeeding most land OT, so that is something I definitely have to keep in mind. But I did decide to run enough speed for a modest Rotom fan, just to try to catch that, and I really did want the adamant damage. I just felt like it was relevant and valuable here to get that extra 10% in on things like the extreme speed. So I figured I'll take the L here on the like possibly outspeeding the landers and stuff, just to get that little bit of extra damage off with this Zygarde. Next up is Sylveon again this week. Another mon that had a pretty good performance last week. It is going to be another fairly specially defensive set, but with enough speed this time to make sure I'm passing up on that Skarmory, since I expect that thing's not going to be running a ton of speed since it needs the bulk. Calm Mind, really good on this set though. Gets me that special attack that I really wanted to run this week, but just couldn't quite justify because I needed this to sort of check the Keldeo in a lot of ways. Calm Mind helps me get that special attack. Leftovers obviously help me heal a little bit. And then Hyper Voice, Mystical Fire, and Psyshock go absolutely nuts on my opponent's roster. Dragalge obviously can't come in on Hyper Voice happily and definitely doesn't want to take a Psyshock. Skarmory doesn't want to take a Mystical Fire. Weavile doesn't want to take a Hyper Voice or Mystical Fire. Even Keldeo can switch in on the Mystical Fire. That lowers the special attack and allows me to hit it much harder. Rotom Fan, which can potentially come in depending on the set. Mystical Fire lowers the actual damage output that it's putting on me and the pressure it's putting on me, especially defensive Blossom similarly. And Necrozma is not a problem at all if it's a special set with the Power or Meteor Beam, because Mystical Fire can just shut that down. I don't have to worry about activating Weakness Policy with the Mystical Fire. I just kind of lower its special attack and I'm a general nuisance to it over the course of the game, which is what this Sylveon wants to be. It is a special wall, which means it's going to bait in things like the Weavile and the Landorus after it gets a kill, which means I can't get too committed to my setup. I have to just be willing to let this thing come in, maybe get a Calm Mind or two up just to make sure that it's taking the hits it needs to take to kill the mons it needs to kill, and then I have to be willing to switch this out. I cannot be greedy with this Sylveon. I don't want to take a big hit, even if it'll mean a big hit on the Landorus T early in the game. More likely than not, this getting out is better for me than actually going for the Hyper Voice and taking 60 to 70% from an Earthquake from Lando T, unless I can guarantee that it's going to kill the Lando T, which is a problem for my roster. Next up is my Galarian Zapdos this week, and this is Assault Vest. It could be Scarfed, but the only mon that it sort of relevantly changes the speed calc against for being Scarfed would be the Keldeo. And while that's helpful, I decided to go with AV this week, which can take a hit from the Keldeo anyway, since Weavile is always going to Ice Shard no matter what, so I don't really care if I'm Scarfed to outspeed that. And being able to change my moves might end up being a significant factor in the mid game of this, since Thunderous Kick getting a defense drop, almost every single mon will then die to another move if I can change the move. So if Necrozma comes in on the Thunderous Kick and I get the defense drop, U-turn might be able to kill depending on the set. Rotom Fan, after a Thunderous Kick, might die to a Close Combat or a Brave Bird. If not, U-turn's doing a lot of damage and I can get that big damage off. Lando T, for instance, which should never switch in on this because obviously Defiant, will die to a Brave Bird after a Thunderous Kick. Things like that can resist the Thunderous Kick. Don't want to take another coverage option, or my other stab mostly. So that's why I decided to go with the Assault Vest over the Scarf this week. Although I did change the item a number of times and Muscle Band came up and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go like Sharp Beak or Muscle Band or what, but or even just Black Belt and just to kick Thunderous Kick over and over. But I decided to go with the Assault Vest here just so I could maybe take one extra hit with this thing. Maybe the Dragalge can't quite kill me with Sludge Wave. Maybe the Keldeo can't kill me with a Scald. Things like that. I decided to go with the Assault Vest for those potential opportunities to get that one extra attack off with this Zapdos. And here's where the team gets fun. We are not rocking out a Trick Room team this week. Instead, we have a max HP, max defense Weavile with Intimidate, checking, actually hard countering Weavile. If Weavile, did I say Weavile? It's a Mawile. That's not confusing at all. Anyway, Mawile hard counters Weavile, intimidates it. If it goes for a triple axle, it's taking 3 rounds of Rocky Helmet, doing approximately 20% max. I can then Super Fang on the Skarmory, which threatens that, or just straight Baton Pass out into another mon as the Weavile is forced to switch out. The next time, obviously it'll click knockoff if it didn't the first time. That's fine. I'll lose my Rocky Helmet. I'll do another 17% to the Weavile, which would then be at 30% already from just the Rocky Helmet chip from this, which would be awesome because the Weavile then is in range of E-Speed from the Zygarde. Knockoff is really good if I want to hit the Skarmory with that instead of going for a Super Fang or Baton Pass like the first try of the game that this thing comes in. And Pain Split's also really good because whatever you bring in, I can get this thing healthy again, make sure it's continuing to check the Weavile and keep that from threatening me. Now the problem is this doesn't actively threaten the Weavile itself necessarily outside of Rocky Helmet chip. I really wanted to run Play Rough, and arguably Play Rough is better than Knockoff here. Knockoff might almost be a trap, and you might actually see me change that for the game itself, since Play Rough has decent coverage against my opponent's roster, gives this thing an actual out to hit the Keldeo with, and Knockoff isn't necessary against the Skarmory, since Baton Pass or Pain Split are usually better options. So maybe I'll change that out to be Play Rough, just so that I have that way to hit the Weavile and actually threaten it a little bit. But on some level, Play Rough feels like the same type of trap that Knockoff feels like, and Knockoff feels better if I accidentally fall into that trap of using it than Play Rough does, because Weavile's gonna switch out 90% of the time or more. And that means that the Play Rough that's trying to hit the Weavile is actually a worse click than any of my other options. So that's sort of the situation I found myself in. And at the end of the day, if it's Mawile versus Weavile 1v1 with nothing else alive, I'm already going to lose that game. Like, Knockoff with Super Fang, getting Weavile chipped down before I get chipped down is sort of my only out. And at that point, like, I really don't think this Mawile is going to be that useful to me. If the Weavile goes down, this thing can come in on the Landorus T and just get an Intimidate off to allow me to switch something else in safely, but I have to be willing to let my Mawile go down once the Weavile goes down. These two are basically just one-for-one trading for each other, and the Mawile is just threatening the Weavile out, using Baton Pass to get back in later and give me momentum later in the game. So that's really what the point of this is just to make sure that Weavile, which is a huge nuisance for the rest of my roster. As you saw, I have my Zatu, Zapdos, and Zygarde on this roster, so I do have all of my ice weaknesses here this week, is just kept in check by this Mawile. That's the goal of it. That's the point of it. Knockoff would be able to get rid of boots potentially on the Weavile. I don't have any hazards myself, but if my opponent wants to try to set up with Skarmory, gets cheeky, my Zatu comes in, sets up spikes on their side of the field, could potentially help against the Weavile as well. And lastly is Magmortar. Magmortar this week is going to be rocking out with the Fire Punch, Belly Drum Substitute, and Earthquake set. This actually kills almost every Mon from about 80%. Like, no matter what Mon it is, if it's at 80%, it dies. And I'm running the Slackberry sub Belly Drum Slack set. This thing is going to be able to hopefully set up against the Blossom. It's Vital Spirit, so if I switch it on the Sweet Powder, that doesn't do anything. I sub. That's great. If it's like a physically defensive Blossom to really check the Lando, even at +1 after a Quiver Dance, Giga Drain isn't breaking a sub, which is perfect. And then once I get to 25%, I outspeed the whole team. Whoops. I outspeed the whole team. And if they're not scarfed, and I can just Fire Punch, Fire Punch, Fire Punch. I have enough bulk on this. The bulk investment here is to be used so that Choice Banded Weavile Ice Shard never kills at 25%. So if they do break my sub, Weavile comes in to try to revenge. I always survive, can Fire Punch. EQ kills Keldeo from full at +6. Fire Punch kills Lando T at +5. And we just go from there. And hopefully this thing is able to get the job done. Obviously, Skarm being Rocky Helmet could be a potential stopgap to this, which is why the Knockoff is the one I'm going to probably stick with on the Mawile for that Skarm, so that this can come in and finish the game. That's the goal of it. Whether it's going to actually happen or not, I'm not sure. It's not the only win con I have. Obviously, Banded Zygarde late game is super good here. Sylveon can just wreck the team. So I'm really hoping that this is useful in this game, but we'll see. And it can set up on the Blossom. It can set up on the Skarmory. Most Skarmory would be afraid of staying in against a Magmortar and would switch out, which gives me the chance to sub. It can set up against potentially the Dragalge if it's worried about like a big hit from this and wants to be preserved. Can set up on the Miltank as long as it's not a Seismic Toss Miltank. Like, there's a lot of possible options. If I can bluff a Scarf effectively, it can maybe set up even on the Weavile. So there's a lot of potential options on this, like where it can actually find the time to get that sub up and then Belly Drum and then go from there. I'm excited to use it. Whatever happens in this game, I'm going to say this thing has a chance. I've done it in mocks. It's worked. So I think it has a chance to work. And that's against the people who actually knew it was coming. Like my friends who helped me prep gave me a mock and then played as if they knew what the Magmortar was, which was really frustrating. They were like, yeah, I'll stay in on a Magmortar with my Skarmory and click Whirlwind. And I was like, why? If I just Fire Blast, the thing's just dead. Why would you do that? But that's what they did. So, you know, they played around it and it still managed to get off its big hits. The other thing that's really nice about this particular set this week is that if rocks do come up against me, that just acts as the substitute, and I just Belly Drum from there and get the Slackberry without having set up a substitute, which is kind of nice. So it just puts me perfectly in range of Belly Drum into Slack. So rocks aren't going to end the game, under the opportunity to set up a Belly Drum for this. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys all back here tomorrow with that battle against, again, Aquarius, coach of the Chicago Strength Sap. Take care, everybody.